All right, so we can get started real quick. The bulk of this interview, honestly, I'm gonna download it from Instagram after, and we're gonna put it up on YouTube. If it happens to go past an hour, we'll clip it, come back through. So on that note, hello everybody who is here, Mr. Mike 514 UFC. I see you. So welcome to the Eulogy interview over here with Behind That Suit. We actually had the pleasure. Well, I mean, I went through it and reviewed the man's brand new EP, the Animal Mother Project, which I highly recommend you checking out. For those of you who will see this on the YouTube, links in description for all of that good stuff. So I thought it would be real dope having gone through the man's project to have a conversation with the dude, get to know him a little bit better, and introduce him to everybody out there. So, Mr. Eulogy, why don't you
What up?
start with the very beginnings and tell us where you are from and kind of what led you into the beginning of your hip hop journey.
Oh man, all right. Where to begin? Well, myself, I was born and raised in Russia, and I moved to
Right.
Canada when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And
Okay.
yeah, so I've been, located in Ontario ever since I moved to Canada. And my first exposure, I want to say, to hip hop was something like Space Jam, man. I distinctly remember one of my favorite songs on the soundtrack was I hit him high, hit him high, hit him high. Method Man, LL Cool J.
Mm,
I think Coolio was on that. Like that was one of my favorite shits. And then, yeah, growing up in North America in the late '90s, early 2000s, like you get exposed to rap music, man. It's hard to think about, but it wasn't as big as it is nowadays. But it was still like a huge. I remember
I
like
hate to,
every coming
I hate
around the
to
end of high
interrupt
school.
you. It just cut a little bit in the middle. If you could just repeat that last bit just a little one more time.
Yeah. So what I was saying was, you come to Canada as a young kid, and you start to sort of connect with other kids that are growing up, and you start to sort of absorb the pop culture. And one of the first things you're exposed to is rap music, man. Like Slim Shady was just popping at the time. This was
Mm,
just before 50 Cent was huge, right? So I obviously got like a huge exposure into rap music. And if you recall, new metal was huge at the time, or at least starting to bubble up with shit like Linkin Park. Rage Against the Machine dominated the late '90s, right? So that was another big one, which brought over sort of my larger influences of rock music that I sort of grew up on more, and combined it with these new sensibilities of shit that I was sort of like, oh, rap music's interesting, but somebody like my parents, let's say, was like, don't you fucking think about it, right? You're not listening to that trash. Pull your fucking pants up. We want you to get good grades in school. That little tired bullshit, right? The foreign family coming from, over the pond. They come over here. They got the old sensibilities. So I recall around like the end of high school is when I was sort of like, man, like, what am I going to do with you know what I mean? I had no plans post secondary. Friends were sort of starting to fizzle out. And you just sort of like, you're smoking a ton of weed and you just sort of start fucking around with music with the boys. And little by little, you at first it's sort of just a hobby, something you do when you link up and you start to smoke and you talk about it and you really connect with the heads. And then little by little, it starts to build into a passion. And I like to think, going back, I was always musically inclined as a kid. And unfortunately, my parents didn't either have the foresight or the funding to necessarily take me to places like tryouts for, like, let's say, like a movie role or something, right? I remember my mom tried to take me to some place to get like a TV acting thing or something to do with music, like tryouts for something. And the moment they start mentioning the costs for like headshots and all this other crap, European families are just like, we're not doing that. That money's better off going over to education. Forget that. But I remember since a little kid, I was always musically inclined, always like making little songs. I always wanted a drum kit. I was always rhythmically like good in music class. So looking back, there's all these things that were always leading me towards music. I just feel like outside elements didn't necessarily, like I didn't have an older brother or an older uncle in the country who, let's say, might have
mm.
been that cooler older uncle who does music, and he's like, oh, bet, I'll buy you a guitar for Christmas and I'll teach you how to play, right? So it took me a little longer until I found like a grouping of other people in a local scene. My friends, obviously, it started with, but then, you know, you go get a new job somewhere. Let's say I got a job working at the theater, and I linked up with my man Danny Knight, and that was a huge thing because we literally only linked up through music. I remember I was sitting in the fucking in the break room eating popcorn, writing lyrics on the phone, and he literally comes through, and
So
he's
like
like, "What's up?"
When about was this that you linked up with Danny Knight?
That part again?
When approximately when did you link up with
Oh
Danny
man, this
Knight?
must have been 2010. So shortly after high school, we graduated in 2009, and then like I took super senior year, and I was just kind of just fucking bumming around, get my extra credits, thinking like we'll figure shit out as we go along. And I got my summer job at the theater, and yeah, I remember I'm sitting there in the break room writing just lyrics for a song, and he comes in on his break. He's like, "Yo, you writing rap lyrics?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, like I do this shit." He's like, "Oh, word, like come through, man. We should link up and do some stuff." And now I'm like at my boy's base right now. He's just off camera right now filming me, and we've been fucking making music ever since. So that's almost been like 10, going on 10 years now.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah, so that sort of started. At first, it was sort of just like something to do with the homies instead of going out and drinking and doing drugs and just like getting up to fucking some real shit has gotten you into trouble before. Like I'm talking about like some real fucking youthful activities that we've all probably gone into and shit. But as you grow older, you're like, fuck, I need more positive outlets for things in my life as opposed to just like breaking into cars or some stupid shit with the boys, right?
Fair
So
enough.
little by little, it sort of formed into yeah, like a positive outlet for what was going on all our lives. And around shortly after that is when my mom got really sick, and a lot of other stuff were going on all our lives, and we sort of started using music as simply just an outlet, right? And a lot of people were kind of almost sneak dissing us on the side, being like, "Oh, you guys are always working on music together, and your little basement operation, and we never hear anything. Like you guys are all talk, like, I'll believe it when I hear it," type shit.
You
And
guys
yeah,
are
it was just like,
you
sorry?
guys are from like a small town or like a big city in Ontario?
Oakville, Ontario. Me and Danny are located in Oakville. I'd say it's about the size of Burlington, if anyone's familiar. It's again not like a Toronto-sized municipality, but it's not like country bumpkin. It's on the border of like a lot of rural areas. There's like gardens and shit, just like a couple of main intersections down. But for the most part, Oakville's pretty developed, and it's showing no signs of slowing down either. It's getting very developed. Yeah, for sure. It
Okay.
kind of started with small town vibes, but now it doesn't feel like that. I mean, that could just be us getting older, but who knows?
No, I feel you. I mean, even in Montreal, I mean, like, I'm in Montreal, right? And like the parts that were like just outside of Montreal, I don't look the same as when I was a kid. It went from like nothing to fully developed like suburbs and all this other stuff rolling out.
I
So I
remember
can
farm fields.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
If
I drove by and it's just shit that used to be farm fields is now supermarkets, and I'm like, fuck, I sound like that old geezer on the porch being like, back in my day, this used to be. I'm like, fuck, back in my day, this was like 10 years ago, not even like a little more than 10 years ago. Yeah,
no, fair
but yeah,
enough.
that we got a little bit of the small town flavor, but like I said, me and Danny are the only ones really located here. I know you're familiar with Uncle Dre, who was on one of the tracks on my release. He's definitely part of the Track House crew. He lives in like a city down. You know what I mean? I got my boy Skinny Chuckler who lives in Brampton. So we're all decently localized, and everything's in Ontario. I've just now started recently working with people like even further than those cities, but still in Ontario. So I'm hoping we got to link some shit up and finally bridge the Ontario Quebec, gap.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when it comes to a touring perspective, small town Quebec and small town Ontario is a bigger circuit than one of those two things put together. Just saying collectively combined, the more of us linking our little patchworks of our territories, it just creates a bigger bridge of potential.
Right on.
Um, so you and Mr. Knight are basically in the basement, kind of post high school, messing around, figuring out, I guess how it works. However, you guys do your thing. People are kind of doubting you, and then kind of what happens. I imagine at some point you start releasing or performing, or something happens along the way.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, like we very, very early on, we were working on more of a demo project, just sort of like patching all our songs together and all these projects that we've been doing along the way and trying to sort of combine them into one little cohesive document that we can put out, stake our claim, and say, fuck all you motherfuckers. We actually do this music shit seriously, and here it is. It's sort of a passion project. And that ended up coming out in, I think, 2014. I was After Hours. That was our first demo project, and
Okay.
you know, came out. didn't do nothing because at the time we didn't know how to push these projects. We didn't know how to properly promote this stuff. All we really had was like this thing that we loaded all these hours into, and it wasn't the most professional sounding product because despite the fact that we knew how to produce and rap and maybe record, the mixing and the post-production element of getting your track to actually sound like not a basement operation, that escaped us. That escaped us.
I empathize with that.
Yeah,
How long
yeah,
was
that
your
escaped
project?
us a little.
How
Sorry, what
long
was
was
that?
how long was the project?
Oh man, see that's the thing. Like we started it maybe 2012, I want to say, and it should have taken. It was only a 10 song, 10 song, and it took us like 2.5, almost 3 years to release because of constant perfectionism coupled with sort of fear of like, no, this isn't good enough. We have to rework this. I know
Mm.
my man Clockwork, who was main producer on a lot of those beats. Um, oh man, we had that guy maybe do version 5 of some of those beats, right? And he fucking hated those songs by the end of it, but he was a G about it and he did it anyway. But looking back, I'm like, fuck. Sometimes you strike gold on the second pass and you keep pushing because you think there's expectations to create, and then you look back and you're like, you somehow pull up an old demo. You're like, shit, what the fuck were we listen.
But that's cool that it took you like you took 2.5 years to create a project, right? That's not like insignificant. That I mean, in terms of commitment, right? A lot of people may think it's kind of a joke or it's kind of whatever, but when I hear that, it sounds like people putting their heart and soul into creating something. Like, what were the kind of?
Almost too much, man, because I gotta say I feel like
But it's your first one, right? Like,
almost doing some of these things. Like you're sitting there and you're like, oh man, like look at this song that so and so just released recently, right? Like look how they did their thing, and blah blah blah, and oh, and you just have all these conflicting opinions, and you should have just put it out and moved on to the next stuff. When you're starting out, you're not gonna land on your fucking Abbey Road as your first album. Even the Beatles
right,
took a while to get to their best projects. So I feel like our biggest detriment to our progress at the time was us just sitting there and going, this has to be like the Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory as the first release, like just an untouchable fucking project. Who the fuck are we to have that kind of expectation of yourself's a little loony. We look back and we go back to some of these songs and we listen to it. A couple of them stand out as like, wow, we kind of did our shit there. But a lot of it, like I said, was marred by poor mixing, poor mastering, and not having a full understanding of how to treat the audio quality and create a professional sounding project. Because I've heard other things that we released around that time that weren't official, maybe little freestyles and stuff like that, that we mixed way quicker. We only did like a quick little pass, and they sound better and more professional than this full project we put out because you tinker too fucking much. You start to change shit without knowing necessarily what you're changing, and you
right.
create, flat mix, all these things happen. So yeah, I'm saying it's a hard listen nowadays because you hear what the ideas for the songs were, but just the execution is so amateur. It's almost like, oh god.
I mean, I think that's one of those things that most of the artists paying attention to this are going to feel a lot more than the fans would because most people
Yes.
don't know what the vision is. But that's still, like, to me, respectable. I mean, usually your first project takes that kind of length because there's so much of a learning curve. But I was just curious, what kind of influences? I mean, I know it's the cliche question of questions, but what kind of like influences did you have coming into that?
Well, initially, like I was talking about before, my very initial influences would have been stuff like Linkin Park and Rage Against the Machine, where I wasn't a full-on hip-hop head, but I was gravitating to elements that were super inspired by hip-hop, right? And these guys, like Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park, Zach from Rage, they're huge fans of hip-hop. Zach is on Run the Jewels albums to this day. Numerous
Absolutely.
features. He was on songs with KRS-One. Like, these guys are big hip-hop heads. And that slowly, little by little, dragged me into that world. Then came something like Eminem. I don't think there's like a white dude rapping nowadays that can't, with full honesty, say that Eminem has, even a slightest way, influenced some of their artistic output in the way they do things. It doesn't have to be major, but let's all be honest. We all listen to Stan, and we all felt some type of way about storytelling and the kind of stuff that man can do on a microphone.
That's fair.
Now, talking about more recent stuff.
All right. Yeah, that looks a little smoother. Like you're back with me.
There we go. I'm looking at it now, so hopefully this runs a little better.
Cool. So you were just commenting on your newer influences before I
Yeah.
cut it.
Okay, so pretty much like I said, yeah, the oldest stuff was like stuff that I'd be listening to as like a teenager, around like late elementary school, Linkin Park, Eminem, a little bit of the most hip hop influence I had at the time, besides Shady and 50, would be stuff on the radio, just shit that you would hear, kind of Lil Jon, all that stuff. I would consider myself ahead. Then shortly after, like the end of high school, coming up, I think it was super senior year. I was taking another year of school, and I was doing like just hanging out with my boy on break, and he puts me on a Nas. He puts me on an Illmatic. He's like, bro, if you're gonna be doing this music shit, this rap shit, you're gonna take it seriously. You gotta learn the goodies, man. He's like, go listen to Nas. He's like, Nas is the illest now. What the fuck? Like, I've never even heard of this guy. Like, if he's so dope, how have you not heard? How could I not have heard of him if he's not like on that level? I went home, bro. I downloaded Illmatic, and that shit blew my fucking mind. That like unlocked actual hip hop for me, not just like spin-offs and mainstream kind of rap. That unlocked actual like real like. I hate using that term because what is real hip hop? I'm just talking about the real classic kind of like you want like the epitome of like amazing hip hop. Everyone says Illmatic, right? That album to
Right.
me, it had the production, it had the narrative, right? It came as from the streets as you could get. It had again the dude's voice, even at what 18 years old, captivating as fuck. Crazy that this guy was like practically my age, and it sounded like a very elderly statesman kind of guy. Nas came off as a
Mm.
real old soul. And I even
I
to,
do
to
think that's a huge part of the charm of that album. It is the fact that he's so young, coming off with that kind of poetry and tone.
he seems like he's like, yeah, like in his 40s almost, right? And I remember looking it up, and I was sitting there in my car smoking weed before class one day, listening to this album. I'm like, yo, he's like my age. Shit. And then that was the album that really told me that you could do more than just like, at the time I knew rap songs either party crap or like rap your ass off, Eminem, kind of like just showing proof
Mm.
type of stuff. But then I started noticing the ghetto reporter side of it, the side of it that told the stories of like impoverished and marginalized peoples. And like above all else, hip hop is what to me fully unloaded the narrative of the suffering of a lot of people that had no idea was even happening. You know what I mean? You listen to albums by Nas, by Biggie, by Wu-Tang, by everybody across the board, Jay-Z, of course. And you start to create this large picture of something that you would never get from movies, CNN, news reports, any of this stuff, even people telling you, because A, I don't live in America, but B, I'm not from that walk of life, right? And it really put a frame of reference to me as to like, yeah, man, now I understood inequality, right? I understood racism and systemic racism a lot more through the music because it like the stories and scenarios they painted, they were like you couldn't even argue against them. They entered your ear and they sat in your brain, and that's what it was. And if you couldn't relate to them, you're just a heartless human being because at the end of the day, those are stories, tales passed from one another to the other. You know what I mean? That's as human as you can get. So Illmatic was just like a fucking nuclear
Right.
bomb in my head, right? Then I was like, all right, it's time to go hip hop scholar. I went and downloaded early Snoop. I went and downloaded all the Biggie. I went and got Wu Tang. I went and got Tribe. I went and got like NWE. I went and got Scarface and Ghetto Boys. I went like across the board everywhere. I started pulling. I went as far back as Rakim, KRS-One, like even before that, and that just like boom. I was a hip hop head. That's when I was like, I fell in love with the shit. Anytime I was with anybody, anywhere, all I was doing is talking, playing, or rapping. You know what I mean? We're either talking about hip hop, or playing hip hop, or we're fucking making it, spitting hip hop. Get the fuck out of here if that's not what you want to do. I like lost friendships because all we would do is get together, smoke a gang of weed. The one dude's like, yo, do you guys want to go and like whatever. We're like, nah, man, we're gonna sit here and listen to this one Wu-Tang song over and over again and like figure out who had the fucking like illest verse on this shit. Yeah, and he's like, hey, fuck you guys. Yeah,
No, that
that's
sounds
when
fun.
that's when shit like Outkast, Biggie, Nas, Wu-Tang, those really took hold and like cemented my understanding of like hip hop outside of mainstream radio crap that you as a white suburban kid would be listening to. You know?
I appreciate that. I feel like my trajectory kind of starts around new metal Eminem, and then as time went on, and around I guess end of 2016, I started the Behind That Suit channel where we started studying more, and it took a while, but in a lot of the same ways, you really discover a lot of truths that aren't necessarily reported on. The craziest metric to me, at least in my opinion, is that you can pick a city in the
Oh
States
no.
or even in Canada, regardless of like where it is, you can pick a decade of hip hop. And as long as it's a hip hop album, there's like a 98% chance police brutality gets mentioned, regardless of city or
Fuck.
decade.
I keep losing
And
him.
that's like an insane metric to think about, that pretty much the entire genre has been reporting on this without like anybody in the mainstream side of it really taking it seriously. So I think it's cool that you brought up that end of it all. Um, yeah, so that's fresh, man. That you really like
Fuck,
give a
I'm
shit about
losing you, bro.
content.
God damn, keeps chopping you.
I was just saying, I think it's fucking cool that you like took the time to study the culture and get into the craft and like not just be like a dude that comes in, hears Eminem and starts trying to rapidy
That
rapidy
was
it,
a
but
big
actually
thing
like,
for me.
cares about the history because it's so important. It's such an important thing that kind of led us all into like it's a gift, like hip hop is a gift to me. It's a community, and I think it's cool that you treat it like that. So about when was this like hip hop cultural revelation taking place in your life? So I mean, I guess 2012, 2014, your album comes out. Is it during this process or is it like
Earlier. Earlier. So this would be like just at the end of high school, right? Like 2009 is when we graduated, and that's when I like just like fully started just chiefing out every day, you know what I mean? And I was like, yo, let's listen to a new album of hip hop a day and just start to like build the playlist, build the shit that anytime I'm hanging with the boys, I'm like, yo, check this out. And then I got them on the way to where next time we met up, they're like, yo, boom, but peep this. And then you sort of create your own little interconnected community of hip hop heads. And that was around 2009, 2010. Then 2010 is like when I linked up with Danny, and then we really started to push it as more of a collective as opposed to just individual fans of the stuff that would just hang out with friends and sort of do it. We actually said, yo, why don't we like instead of just linking up to chill, let's link up and set out to maybe work on a song. It doesn't have to be super serious. And that would be about 3 to 4 years before we released our first demo project. So that was just a lot of for me especially because I was just nervous. I'm like unsure of myself, right? I'm some like suburban white kid who wants to jump in this. And like you said, I don't want to just be the dude who listens to Eminem and is like, yeah, I can rap. Yo, my mom took my fucking, you know what I mean? I'd just be a carbon copy of what he's doing without taking the time to learn and study all the aspects of it. So when you come out, you're a genuine product. You're not just some fucking carbon copy bullshit of what the bare minimum of what you listen to, and you have your own genuine take on the matter. And I was also just nervous because I thought, I couldn't hold the track down by myself. So a lot of it was just me, we'd work on a song. I'd say, nah, like delete it. Like we gotta work. Very unsure of myself. So it took a while before I was committed to any verses that I thought, okay, these are some, these will do. People will listen to these and won't think I'm whack. So that whole span of it was like training. I was practicing. I was trying to get better to a point where I thought we can put out a project that doesn't sound like cringeworthy. Like that was my biggest fear was you put it out, people are like, "Wow, dude, like don't ever rap again." You know what I mean? Like you're bad. But I knew it wouldn't be that because I'm my own worst critic. So if I put shit out, people tell me it's whack. I'm like, you're an idiot because I sat here for a million years doubting myself like over and over and over and over again. And that's why, yeah, like our first demo took so long to put out. And after that is when we finally realized, okay, we got that out of the way. It's almost like a weight off your chest has been lifted because you go, okay, cool. So what's next? What do we do after this? We've learned what we learned. We made the numerous mistakes that we made. How do you reconcile that and how do you move forward? What's the next project? Around this time, we started doing a lot of live shows at local venues. Big one was Less Than Level. That's our like shelter, baby. That's our like from like 8 Mile. When they go to the shelter, that was like our shelter. Yeah, we would always be doing once a week. We'd run open mics there on Wednesday nights, and on the weekends we'd do like little shows. So we were finally starting to learn how to like rock a crowd, actually do live performance. And for the follow-up to After Hours, which was our demo, I said, yo, we got to do a quick little EP of live songs that work really well in a live environment, right? Because we're always performing with these people. We're always in a live setting. We should have songs that get crowd involved, man. Like, that's what hip-hop's at its essence really about, is moving a party, being able to, like, navigate a crowd, mic controller, all this shit. So we set out to work on that. That was a disastrous project in a lot of ways because we didn't fix anything of what didn't work the first time around, and we just kept trying to sauce on extra stuff. So the production improved. Like, my boy Clockwork, who was an integral part of, like, our first demo tape, came through with 2 beats on the second project, but he was heavily in school at the time, so he had to take a bit more of a back seat on the project. And the beats were nasty, right? But the way the projects came together felt a little uninspired. Like, we were sort of filling in blanks, trying to get these songs out. So I look back on that project as it didn't sound any better than After Hours because we hadn't fixed any of the issues with mixing, post-production, mastering that caused the first one to sound basement. And we just tried a bunch more new shit that we thought would give us a better live reception to people at these live venues. Didn't work out that great. Great songs came off of that project, but if you go back and listen to it, again, it sounds like a hodgepodge mix of ideas and not fully cooked, and it is what it is. So this would be around 2015. So to bridge the gap between then and now, what essentially happened was we sort of took a step back and realized that we always had better luck releasing one song at a time in our earlier careers when we were just doing little freestyles over other artists' beats. Right? There was a hot song that came out, you pull the beat, you rap your shit on it, you put it out, you know, whatever remix by Eulogy. At the time, I wasn't even going by Eulogy. I've gone through so many fucking names, it's not even funny. At the time, I was going by Auto Major. Yeah, we did a lot of those little tapes where we just jacked beats, and we just rapped over that shit. But we always had the best reception with those because it's one song at a time. You put it out, and the people receive it, they listen to it, that's it, you move on to the next one. If you put out or attempt to put out a project as an unestablished artist and you simply do not have a fan base simply due to being, let's say, the popular kid in school or that, like, local guy that everybody knows, so people are gonna check for your album. If you just put out a project, it's gonna belly flop and sink in the fucking water because you don't know how to get it to people, right? And that's what we did. We always had better success with single songs. We put out one song at a time and people latched onto it. So I thought, okay, let's go back to that. And in the last 5 years, we've sort of been, you know, we're getting older too. So we had to restructure how we did our music because people were pursuing careers. We can't all just sit in the basement all the live long day like Goody Mob and make fucking beautiful rap music. You know, people start to, relationships get pursued, careers get pursued, life moves on, you know. Some of our homies are in their, like, starting their 30s, some are in their late 30s, you know. You gotta move on for life, and you gotta start doing things for yourself as opposed to just sitting here fighting for the dream with the boys in the basement, right?
Right.
As erotic as that sounds. You know, you know, so I at that point realized, because before then I was merely a rapper. I just had homies who were great beat makers, and they would make beats, and I would rap on it. And eventually I realized, shit, man, like, one day you might wake up and everybody else is doing something else. You know, and people could be all moving on to bigger, better things in their life. And what, does that mean the end of your musical output because now you have nobody to supply the musical landscape of what you do?
Right.
And that was about 2 years ago where I really was like, yo, I got to start learning how to do everything myself so that God, that day never has to come, but if it does come, I'm not left out floating in the water by myself. I can sit and I can make the beat. I can mix the beat. I can record my vocals. I can mix. I can master. I can do everything and be a one-man killing machine. You don't have to, but you should know how to. So I set out to do that. And what you heard on Animal Mother EP was the culmination of these early projects where I said, okay, I got to make a beat. I got to make a beat with no one's help and make it serviceable enough to where when I send it to friends, they go, oh, yo, cool. Like, what are you doing with that? That's an actual song. I took those beats. They got a decent reception with the homies. I made them into songs. I made them into Sunday Afternoon, made them into MADsoundz, which I wasn't even going to make a song out of, but I got a good enough reception on that beat, and enough people asked me, yo, can I jump on that beat? Made a song. Put together an EP. That sort of proved to me that I could do enough of this where I'm not going to be, relying on too many other people to make this happen. And I feel that in the last 2.5 years has created the most progress, because as I work on my own shit, people in whatever capacity they're able to, like I said, people have careers now, people have relationships, we're all getting older, but in whatever capacity they're able to, they still contribute. But I have the basis of everything myself. If I need to do a project, I can do it myself. If I have all the homies that want to contribute, even better. I now have to do less myself, but I can still make the whole thing happen. So that's sort of the output moving forward. I did these 3 videos. All 3 beats were done by me, except for co-production by Danny on MADsoundz with the bass line. I did the videos myself with my shooter B-Ran. And I just needed this project to sort of prove to myself that at the bare minimum I could put out stuff, and little by little we could work off that. So now I become the center of focus, to where if I see, other people on the sidelines are kind of doubtful of their ability to produce, but they go, hey, I just made this beat, maybe I send it to my boy and he does something with it. That becomes a whole fucking song now, as opposed to just getting lost in somebody's archives, right? So my whole outlook now is to just do things solo, but with the help of so many other people, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? I do my shit, and the moment people want to latch on and contribute, we're all there, and it's even more of a powerhouse unit. And that also allows me to not have to argue with people about stuff. If I feel like the song needs to go a certain way, well, we're going that way then. Whereas before, if I'm working on it with my boy and he's making the entire instrumental, you have to sort of play a little tug of war, it's serving my song, but they're creating the beat. There's a bit of give and take there, right? So it's been quite a journey, man. Like the 10 years that I've really been not supremely serious pursuing this, I'd say that's only been the last 3 years where I've been pushing this seriously. But the 10 years that I've been dabbling in hip hop as an art form and a musical output, yeah, it's been all over the place. I thought it would be originally I would just be a rapper, and I would have a team of beat makers who would provide me with my sonic landscape that I would just come in and fucking, and it's changed into now I can create all that. But all of a sudden my boy comes in, he's like, yo, check out this beat I did. And I could never do a beat like that because there's different styles. Boom. That slides in right into the project, and everything's still one beautifully flowing organism. Yeah.
That's really cool. How long did it take you to learn to? So it took you like 3 years to learn to do all this production, or?
No, not even. That's the thing, because all the earlier times when we were working on the After Hours demo, we were working on all the other projects, I'm the worst like backseat producer in the fucking world, because even before I was producing, I'd be sitting there being like, yo, 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 oh, yo, take that little snare and be like, make it more like, okay, what about that hi-hat? Move that over like to the side here, to the point where people would be like, you want to just get on the computer and do this? And I'm like, no, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. But I have every fucking comment to make about every step of the fucking process. You would think you would just get in there and do it yourself after a while, right? So I always was this guy that like knew how to get into the process. I just felt like, no, leave it to other people to do it. So by the time it came time to do that, I knew exactly what I was doing. I loaded up FL. I loaded up a sample into Edison. I chopped it up. I got my chops. I set them up. I laid some drums down, and I was like, boom, I got me a beat. It was stuff that I seen my boys do all the time. They tried numerous times to do little beat making workshops with me, and they're like, yo, man, you need to make beats. I'm like, yeah, one day. And it was like relearning to ride a bike. It wasn't hard. So I would say it took me about 5 years to learn all that, because if we say we started in 2010 and it wasn't until like 2016 that I started really doing that, little by little I learned the production by watching. But when I started, it was just like that. Like Sunday Afternoon took me like a day to make. MADsoundz took me a little longer. Animal Mother was just sitting there from like earlier times. I touched it up, and then here we are. Now everything after that is when I finally sort of came into my own as a producer. Like, if you listen to what I did on Animal Mother EP, those 3 beats, they are nothing compared to what I've been cooking up lately. Like, not to toot my own horn, but I now consider myself like a pretty good beat maker. Not as good as a rapper as I am, but I'm a pretty dope beat maker. To the
That's
point
right.
where now it's like me and the boys are all a production team that can work and create a sonic landscape that I then just go and demolish vocal wise. And then in places where I need other additional voices or flavors, I can be like, yo, Uncle Dre, you got that deep baritone that, you know, makes all the ladies go, ah, and we put you in that part of the song. You know, Skinny Chuckler, he does the singing really well, and we put him into there. Danny Knight likes to do the soulful R&B shit. I can put him into there because I don't plan on doing something like that every song, right? It's like I got my own little X-Men or Avengers team here. But at any moment in time, I can put together a project entirely by myself. And that's where I feel like not only the freedom of expression comes from, but also it's quicker to work because I go, hey, I got 4 or 5 songs. I've already did all this myself. And some of them, my homies might be like, oh, can I get a verse on this? Done. Oh, can I do the chorus for this? Done. Oh, I have this beat. And now all of a sudden it went from a 4 or 5 EP and now I have a full project because everybody just sort of filled in the blanks.
That's
And I
fair.
feel that's the best method of output now because I've always been like the creative driving force of the group, but sometimes schedules and time and other factors just wouldn't allow that vision to come together. But now if I'm the central guiding chain, and everybody else sort of grabs on, it can get done a lot quicker, but still with like excellent results where I can acknowledge that somebody can program drums better than me or chop a sample better than me or play the keys better than me because I suck at that. I bring them in and they just, they raise it to like 120,000%.
So as I'm listening to all this, you know what it kind of sounds like? It sounds like you really understand what the fucking executive producer is. Not an executive producer, effectively the boss man, right? Because
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not gonna pretend like I can produce, but I can totally backseat produce if I have to. And I kind of like hear you going like, listen, I understand how to fucking do everything I need to get done, but I also know who the best people for each thing is. I'm basically, you're like Travis Scott, who put this shit together. You're the glue. Anyway, I don't know.
exactly.
But that's
Yeah,
kind of
Kanye is my best example of that. He's the original where he would just bring together a group of people around him that individually they make great stuff, but until he brings them all together, points them in the direction they need to go, and pulls it all together, it's not as magnificent as it could be.
that's
So
pretty
I,
dope.
yeah, yeah, I definitely like to take on that like executive producer role and bring all these elements. I like to do that for projects I'm not even on, for fuck's sake. If I got my homie who's doing a song, Danny's making the beat, I'll be like, oh shit, I got all these ideas. You gotta have to fall back a little bit because that's not your project. But whenever they welcome me, I'm like, oh, I got all these ideas. Let's go. Like, yeah, yeah, all over the place. Big fan of that whole
That's really
process.
I mean, it's cool because it's like often I think one of the things that, without taking shots at anybody in particular, one of the pitfalls I would say most artists have is a lack of vision. I know one
Yes.
thing I could say from your project, it's 3 tracks, but there's a degree of vision. As an example of continuity, there's this little red piano shit that ends up in I think 2 of the music videos, maybe all
Yeah,
3. I
it's
don't
all 3 actually. Yeah, you can find it in MADsoundz. Go
I
back and
wasn't
look.
sure where it was, but I knew I saw it in the other 2. And I was kind of looking for it in MADsoundz. So here's the thing about the MADsoundz video: the man is lying down, as in Eulogy here, on fucking train tracks. No like barrier, just lying on the fucking train tracks in the middle of the fucking hot sun. And I just said
Them shits was hot. Them
that man
shits were hot.
suffering for his art in a way that is quite literal here. But
They were hot.
I mean, I definitely enjoyed the project because um, it had this weirdness to it in like the best possible way. Like you had
Perfect.
this bigger like purpose. Like it feels like this weird journey where you're like you kind of like start off like with the more conventional grind on the first track, and then you move
Yeah.
into the posse cut on the second track, and then the third track just goes ball to the walls on some weird animalistic shit. I love
Yes.
the fucking chorus. It's just to give you context for it. Even you can check out my album review if you want my full thoughts for those watching. It's on this
Right.
channel on YouTube, youtube.com/, behind that suit for those watching somewhere else. But you can almost hear the way in the chorus it gets fucking like calm, and he just says mother, I think it is, in like 8
Mother,
languages.
all sorts of languages. Yeah. Like mama, oma, IT, madre. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just has like this flow to it, but overall, you feel more of this personal struggle almost from your music, where you can feel the disconnect between you, societal standards, almost like you're trying to get in touch with that base honesty of life that's out there. A
Yeah.
lot of other people out there maybe aren't. So I call it personally, I group it as middle class normative behavior is what I don't like. It feels like you're not into that as well, which I personally am. I'm always down for people fighting against that status quo.
That's
So
it.
it's a cool project. And I think that the vision you have, where I feel like you definitely have some artistness coming off on you that transcends, because even like at a bars level, the thing that I like the most about his rapping ability is the fact that the flows kept changing up. Like in the MADsoundz, there's like 8 fucking flows you managed to pack into your verse, and like literally every 2, 3 bars, it's changed into something else. I love that shit personally. I just
Appreciate
think
it,
it's a
brother.
good thing.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Method Man. Method Man does that a lot, especially on like even early Wu Tang stuff.
Hmm.
You listen to the song called Method Man on their first Wu Tang album. Same fucking shit. Every 2 bars, he just switches his shit. You can't keep up with it. And I was like, that's killer. To me, a lot of the criticism of some new artists like the Baby. The Baby always. You hear people say, "Oh man, that guy has one flow, and that's all he does on every fucking song. That's all you ever hear about the Baby." I want to be the
To be
opposite of
fair,
that. I know Schoolboy Q is a big one where he says he likes to do his shit the way Jay-Z. He says he listened to Jay-Z, and Jay would always try to go a little different on every verse or song and not flow the same way. He's like, even if it's unconventional and it's something you wouldn't do something different every fucking song. You can always fall back into your pocket, your perfect, like, established flow. And I always try to do that stuff, not to overdo it, but I would not be able to do a whole song where it's just the same flow the whole way through. It's got to be some nice wordplay for that to facilitate, you know?
I feel you, like some poetic device that gets put
Yes.
in to
That
add that
that
extra
justifies
level.
at least keeping the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I mean, I look at it like music is math, and the math equation of these simple flows. I mean, listen, here's the thing. They make great pop music. They're super digestible. I don't find them fun to write, so I don't find them fun to make. And that's kind of how I look at it.
But they're good. Pop, I love pop music though. Let's be fucking real, man. Any genre, any era, there's some great pop music. But
Yeah,
it is hard to make. But it's tough because it's good. Yeah, like it's not that it's corny as shit. It's you have to make it understanding that it's not layered and nuanced and fucking and gritty and all this stuff. You have to strip it so far back to where like you're serving a bare bones meal to someone, but it has to be digestible. Yeah,
I mean, it's almost like every bar has to feel like someone else wrote it for it to be effective pop. And I don't mean
yeah.
that in like a terribly negative way, because yes, I mean a lot of these dudes have maybe distinct flows, but I have this like desire that somebody develops an app where I can take your bar, your lyric or whatever, throw it in, and it gives me like a report of every fucking time a rapper on the internet said that bar. Because I think it would be
I
fucking
remember.
interesting.
I remember you said that in something else. I can't remember what it was. Like one of your like lives, and you were saying you would have loved to know how often just like certain vocabulary, like phrases or certain things in rap have just been used so fucking much. Like one of my favorites, it's not, is in modern rap, like I fuck your bitch. That like every modern rapper is fuck my bitch apparently.
That's
You
true.
know what I
But
mean?
sometimes
Every song.
when they can fuck my bitch in creative ways that I've never heard before, I'm
That's
okay
it.
with you fucking my bitch. Don't get me
I'm
wrong. There are
okay.
guys who are really talented. Like there are dudes who actually have romance And when they lay it down, you're like, okay, here's my girlfriend. By the time they're done their verse, but like, no, I'm guys,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, there are some dudes that have that level of game.
And like,
I
okay,
I listen
oh,
to a lot of albums, and there are dudes who can spit it, which is why the fuck your bitch bars are so fucking boring to me. Because knowing there's
yeah.
actual talent out there, I mean,
Like again, sorry to cut you off. Great example against someone like Redman and Method Man. Half their repertoire is bars about how they've stolen my bitch or somebody else's bitch, but it's always so comical or so like creative and witty where you're like, I'm not even mad. Like, take her. Go ahead, you know?
yeah,
Fuck. But
but
most
like,
of the time nowadays it's just like, yeah, I'm in the Bugatti and I fucked your bitch. You're like,
well, it's
okay,
like
well,
I know for a fact that my girlfriend doesn't care that much about rich dudes. You know how I
yeah,
know? She's with me.
right.
So that was not her priority in the first place. So if that's how you think you're gonna, because it's always, or and another trope that just drives me nuts around this is the I handed you 5 racks and you slept with me, so I'm cool. I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know
yeah.
where that comes
Here's
from,
Don.
but if I'm handing over like thousands of
Five
dollars
racks.
and you sleep with me, I'm not cool. I hired a prostitute. She may have been an expensive
Yeah, do what you
prostitute.
do, do what you do, but don't be out here like, yeah, that's right. PIMP, baby. 5 racks. It's like, what? There's dating apps and shit. How are you bragging about
I
spending
mean,
money on
it
pussy
sounds
now?
it's a little bit the opposite of pimping. It's just, I mean, I'm not advocating actually pimping to put it on wax. It's not my advocating, but
No, 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 no.
listen, at the very least, you can't call it pimping if you handed her money. That is the opposite of the reality.
I
Anyway,
agree.
lack of game. So I mean, I hear where you're coming from with the boring conventions of like a lot of it, but I just wanted to give credit that there are some creative dudes out there here and there that come through and justify all the crap that you hear. It's like take fast rap. There's Tech
Yeah.
Nine. He's still making music. Who the fuck else is really gonna come in the lane and outperform Tech Nine at Tech Nine's game? Do I think Tech Nine is that interesting in 2020? No, he's such a sellout. But do I think that there are yeah, I can justify that on deep levels. Literally, there was an artist on his roster with a change.org trying to get released right now for how corporate Tech Nine is. That's not necessarily true or not. The fact is Tech Nine is corporate. Mr. Fuck the industry is
Yeah,
the
he's not
industry.
really independent. Yeah.
He's independent in the sense that he doesn't have a boss, but everyone else under him is certainly not independent. Um,
Right, right.
but at that point, Tech Nine is still there. So who the fuck is coming out with fast, tricky rap and can cleanly say they beat Tech Nine in any contest? Nobody. But half the underground says they're the best, and that shit drives me nuts. Like, it's one thing to say you're great, but the best? Like Eminem dropped music to be murdered by this year. That's a pretty
I feel
solid
like it
album.
goes without saying thing. I think it's just like I've heard rappers that they can hold no candle to the top 50, but I think you have to say you're the best. Like, what are you gonna be like? You're like,
Never,
I
never
understand for
enough.
my skill level, I'm a 7. Like, you
Actually,
can't brag
I would
about that.
argue
You know what
that
I mean? Like,
Q-Tip has
I'm a
never called
7 out of
himself
10
the
of these
best.
motherfuckers.
Q-Tip says he's the best at what he does. He never says
Who
he's
said
the
that?
best. Q-Tip, because I've done a lot of reviews, right? So one of the things I actually look for is who goes, I'm the best at what I do. I know my place in the game versus who thinks they're the best ever. If you're going to say you're the best ever, like there's a list of 10. Black Thought is maybe one of the only guys I think who can flat out cockily say I'm the best ever because that guy freestyled his first album and then didn't have to write. He, like that first Roots album is completely fucking freestyled. Like, how are you
Yeah.
fucking with? So like, if you're not Black
What
Thought,
else is, you know what else is fully freestyle? Doggy style.
that's true
Quick little
too.
side note.
I mean, Snoop Dogg's another one that's creating albums to this fucking day. So it's like, how could you come out there and even claim to be the best when legends are still producing? Like, you
I
could be
agree with that.
good.
I just think it's par for course. Like you have to. Yeah, I gotta come out and be like, one day I'll be the best on some
I
Pokemon
respect
trainer
that.
shit. Like I want to be the very best. No, you
I
gotta come out
respect
and be like,
that.
bitch, I'm already here, top number one. Like Lil Wayne was declaring himself best rapper alive when like a lot of better rappers were still alive.
That's true, but Lil Wayne, at the time he called himself best rapper alive, had a fan base that at least would die for him. And he had a lot of, like, how many mixed, like, if you want to talk catalog productions, there's very few people who, when he said that, had more workout than Lil Wayne. So at
I
least
agree.
he
I
had,
agree.
like, a claim to make. Whereas
I
I
know.
know guys in the neighborhood calling themselves kings of the neighborhood, and I'm like, dude, I don't
Oh, okay,
have
okay,
fans.
okay. So
And I'm
we're
like
talking
triple
about, yeah,
second.
actual claim to the, yeah. It's like, yeah, of course, if you're in that discussion, like someone like Busta Rhymes could have and
Mhm.
can make the claim of like greatest ever because they have the catalog, they have the skill
Wow.
set,
He
they have
had
the legend status. Hold on, and then you can sit there and debate it for years, but music's all subjective. So, but
Yeah,
I'm
we
just saying, like,
can
yes, I
debate
agree.
Busta Rhymes. There's other people we would agree there's no debate on. We can debate Busta Rhymes. I hear where you're coming
Yeah.
from.
Well, we can debate people like Lil Wayne all day, right? And you could say, "Oh, yeah, he's got more claim to that." Like, it's tough because it's such a broad spectrum. What do we start on? You got old school guys versus new school. Like nobody can touch Rakim, KRS, Big Daddy Kane, and Cool G Rap and Slick Rick. All these guys, they're the untouchable Mount Rushmore of fucking hip hop. So what do you do? How do you level the playing field? Because someone like R.A. the Rugged Man could give, yeah,
Yeah, his
you
last
know,
album, his 2020 album, is in my album of the year list right now. Like,
all right.
it's just fucking ridiculous. So I don't know. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I've managed to do a whole career without ever calling myself the best, but I also present myself like I don't need to call myself the best. I don't know if that makes sense,
I
but
can appreciate that.
there's a swag in not needing to say it. In fact, I'll fucking go on Locks and be like, "Fuck you, you're a better rapper." Fuck, do I care? And then just murder
Yeah,
on the track with skill.
yeah, yeah. Like I don't think I've ever heard Andre 3000 call himself the best rapper ever, but he's always in a top 10
Yeah, Andre
competition.
3000's a fucking genius, man. Like
It's, like I said,
when you like
Outcast.
look at old Outcast, because I don't think a lot of people look at like old Outcast with the level of attention that like Aquemini
Gemini.
and shit and ATL things. Like
The
that's
aliens,
just
bro.
beautiful. I don't know. That's really cool. I guess we did get a bit sidetracked from your life, but listen, I can talk about music all day, every day. I completely fucking.
I'm happy. I'm all for it, bro. Fuck that. I do this shit daily for free, like all day.
So, like, I guess with your project, y'all should check it out. You put this out. Do you feel that the Animal Mother EP has brought you like what you were hoping for with this new strategy?
Yeah, because I'll tell you this. Like I said, this was me working with beats that were part of my first batch of like independently created material. So I thought, worst case scenario, I'll put out songs over these beats, and the worst critique I can get from people is the beats are kind of the weakest point. But that's
Mm.
never the critique. The critique is always the beats are great. You just need to make better songs in some respects. Maybe the choruses need to land a little better, right? Stuff like that. The videos, obviously, more budget, create a larger sense of.
You did like some fucking cool shit with that video. Cause
I
like,
appreciate it, bro. We stretched what little budget we had, and we did a lot of crazy shit. Shout outs again to B-Ran, and we had another shooter, Matthew Gallant, on the MADsoundz video. We actually had two guys. If you go on my Instagram, they're all credited on the official posts. But yeah, like my main goal was to create 3 videos to allow people to have a visual to connect to all future music. Like my next project that I'm putting out is a 9, I think 10 songs, and I don't think I'm doing a single video because I've done these 3, which create a visual for people to latch on to. There's 3 songs that they now have heard from me,
at least
and
the
now,
same video.
what's that, sorry?
It's probably in your best interest to do at least like one video.
I will, once the songs have come out, I sort of feel
Okay.
out what people are digging, right? But my initial plan is just let the music talk. Whereas before, people want a visual. It's not 1955 anymore, right? Like music almost always now has to come with a visual side. Single art. Single art has always been the visual side to a song, but you can't just get by on that anymore. So I felt originally we had to do these 3 videos to give people an idea of who we are, who I am, what my flavor is, what my personality is. And now I have made the light ripples that I was hoping to make. I've made some connections in the world. Here we are talking, right? And for the next project, we just do 2.0. All the beats are better. All the choruses are better. All the verses are better. And once we do the videos will be even better. But the foundation has been laid. And that's kind of what my initial goal with this 3-track EP was to just get music out there, get people to listen, and get people to see a visual for it so that there's an established idea. So when they go, oh, Eulogy just dropped a new track. Well, who the fuck is that? Oh, it's that dude that had a fur coat on in the fucking forest, right? Or was lying on the train tracks, searing his neck off.
That fur coat made you look fucking sleazy. Hold up. There are 26 seconds remaining before Instagram's going to clip us. I'm going to end the video. We'll go re-live and keep it going.
We back?
All right. That's cool. All right, we good to keep it running. Yeah, Instagram cuts off after an hour. It's just kind of what it is.
I feel good, man. I figure we don't want to make this a 3-hour interview either, right? Like, fuck.
Nah, I mean, it had to, at the very least, we had to wrap it up kind of proper. I mean, the one thing we didn't really touch on too much, I mean, we started to, is a bit about what's coming next, right? So you got a new project coming. You described how you're going to, set everything up. You're going to get the visuals running. Once you got everything established. But I was curious a little bit about how you're going to market it beyond that. Because that's the one thing, like, just artists, as an artist, I'm always trying to keep my ear to the streets, see what little tricks everyone's getting up to.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, the ideas I had, what's next, essentially, is, so I described to you how this project, the 3-track EP, I wanted to sort of prove to myself that I could do the whole project sort of in-house, and in-house being just me. So I made the beats, figured out all the songs. Most of the choruses were nothing like special outside of like my inner sanctum of workers, and I got that all done. Now the next project that's coming out is called Space Brothers Playlist. Okay, and it's 10 songs, and I wanted to do almost the opposite of what the other one was. So whereas I did the first one, all the beats were me, all this shit. For this one, I said I want to do like one beat, maybe two, and the rest is all the homies. So most of the beats on this next project are all guys. And I wanted to have a lot more features on it, to just kind of pad out the album, not to oversaturate it the way someone like French Montana does nowadays, or Rick Ross, where it's like, can you even hold down a fucking album by yourself, or is it just a freestyle frenzy with French Montana? So on this next project, I have all the guys coming together. My plan for marketing it is simple. We originally put out music as a collective called Otherwise Known, as opposed to me doing music solo. The name Otherwise Known has now transformed more into like a brand. Not like a label, but more of like, we have a lot of clothing with our logo on it and shit. I recently did a photo shoot with my girlfriend and her sisters and her cousins and stuff. The ladies are all looking lovely, modeling all our stuff. So I'm really going to be trying to push the clothing as like a side brand, the way that someone like Jay did Rockaware at the same time they were trying to push Rockefeller, right? It goes hand in hand. You wear that in your videos. You push your brand, because why wear, if you're going to be making a video where you're rocking other people's shit, getting them notoriety and getting them seen, why not do your own stuff? And then your brand gets built up. You see, and it's simple stuff too. You see pretty girls wearing a band T-shirt. You'd be like, "Whoa, maybe I gotta check those guys out. Maybe I gotta dip into the music or whatever." So that's a big thing, is the merchandise, which we've sort of been stocking up on: designs, shirts, hats. Like, we got everything going on. Old actual physical CD copies of After Hours, which was our first demo. Like, that's a collector's item at this point. Right, so we're gonna be raffling that off with like certain contests and shit where people can answer like trivia. Like, for instance, you noticed that the red piano made an appearance in all 3 videos, right? I would ask a simple trivia question like, can you name all 3 spots that it appeared in on the Animal Mother EP, right? Like, what were the scenes that it appeared in? Oh, boom, you win a hat with Otherwise Known on it, and you win the original like demo pressing of After Hours. Ooh, it's like a collector's item.
That's right.
Aside from that, I have trying to cross-pollinate with other artists, right? So I have, for instance, you're familiar with Archaic. You did his album review, which was what led me to you, and I was like, well, I got to get this guy to do my shit. I'm on his next project. He's got a project coming out, I think, September 25th. It's like a follow-up to his Wormwood EP, which he reviewed. And I'm the sole feature on one of the songs. So, you know, that's an avenue I get to push. I'm going to be doing, I was recruited for like a mixtape by, I can't even pin down where these guys are from. A couple of what the mix engineer that's working on my stuff is in Mississippi. The guy putting it all together is in the UK, flying back and forth to LA. So I've done so far 2 songs on their tape that they're putting together. They pulled me from like a random like Facebook group where I used to just post my stuff to be like, hey, you guys give it a shot. What do you think? One time he just hollered at me and he was like, yeah, like I dig your stuff. Let's talk. And I'm always weary of people trying to like work on shit because it's either you're gonna get hustled with the money or whatever. So I'm like, yeah, let's work. And now here I am, like 75% into the process, and like the mixtape should be out in about a couple months. I'm still waiting to do a 3rd track with the guy putting the whole thing together. Because not to toot my own horn, but they've sort of taken a liking to me on the overall. Like I've kind of shown on the tracks that they've put me on. So that's another thing. I'm just trying to work with like other artists, find myself on other projects, and then vice versa. Put other people that I haven't worked with yet outside of my circle of guys, put them on my projects. Like for Space Brothers playlist, I recently added the last song on it. Very recently, it's featuring Uncle Dre, and it's got the guy who made the beat, who goes by Space Boy. He's from London, Ontario, and the only way I linked up with him was I recently entered a contest put together by the Lunchroom Poets. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're kind of starting to pop in Ontario. They're very, they're like boys with Organic, Snack the Ripper, like those kind of guys. Right, they're Young Stitch. They're like that kind of crew. I'm sure you're familiar with Organic from King of the Dot, right? So I entered the contest. I didn't win. It was a great contest, though, right? You can check my entry on my Facebook. But one of just some random guy ended up hollering at me. He was like, "Bro, your entries in my top 3. Like I fucks with your shit." And I was like, yo, appreciate it. He said, if you're ever in London, Ontario, let's work. I'm like, I'm a little farther away, but like, let's work anyways. So here we are, right? I got the other song added to my next project that's coming out. I'm really just trying to pull people from all around to create like a community project, and that'll be sort of following up this project that I did that was all about me. I made the beats. I put it all together. I had to prove to myself like I'm able to do this. Right, I don't need my buddies to always make beats for me. I have to be able to be a self-sustaining artist at the end of the day.
I appreciate that. I mean, that's cool. It sounds like you definitely have a whole bunch going on. You have a clear plan of what you're doing, and I like the fact that you're making it about networking and just building the connections with other people. Because it's like, end of the day, talent matters, but the networking side matters way more. Is the biggest lesson I've learned.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. I mean, as you said, we don't necessarily just want to stretch the interview for the sake of it. Do you have any last thoughts or ideas before we part ways at this time?
Nothing huge, man. Like like I've already been talking about. The next project we're working on is Space Brothers playlist and bringing in all the homies. Aside from that, we got a very politically charged single coming out pretty soon. We sort of waited to put it out after all this shit that's been going on in the world with the states and just in general the anti-authoritism that's everybody's trying to sort of be on nowadays. I felt like it was very topical to sort of comment on. We got a song, me, Uncle Dre, and Danny Knight, coming out very soon. That's the next single. It's not off any project. It's just an in-between. We felt like it needed to come out, sort of just talk on the state of the world. We actually worked on it even before all this shit happened in 2020, and now it's just like, this is the perfect time to put it out. Now we don't have to wait for a project for it to be on. That's coming out next, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. No video, just a single. I feel like it stands on its own 2 feet with the message. And following that, I have my next video coming out, which is not part of any project. It's not part of Animal Mother EP, and it's not part of Space Brothers playlist. It's a song called Day Ones, and it's just a single, and it's got a video, and it's literally just talking about, like, you know, your day ones, like your homies that have been with you the whole run of the way, and it's kind of like a celebration of like your team and having your like support circle together. So that's going to be a big one. We're actually doing the final bit of shooting this Saturday in Burlington. We're trying to get all the boys together. There's not too many featured parts on the song. It's mainly me, but like everybody's in the video. It's a big like hurrah for the whole team. Following that, we got the Space Brothers playlist that's coming out. Like I said, videos would probably come later. We're just going to come with the music and let that stand on its own. And I got the feature on the Archaic project. That's going to be a big one. I think it's called the Emmanuel EP. It's coming out, I believe, September 25th. I don't know if that's set in stone. Sorry, Archaic, if it is. This other tape, we still haven't settled on a name. I don't know what these guys are doing, but I've submitted 2 full songs. Like, I'm ready to do this UK, US collaboration mixtape. They're pulling artists from like just all over the way. As soon as that gets any traction, I'll be posting about that. But yeah, for sure, check out my boy right here, man. Like, I'm telling you, you got an interesting take on these reviews, man. Like, I go back and watch the one you did for Animal Mother EP, and there's things where I was like, aha, I knew he was gonna say that. I knew he was gonna latch on to that perfect. And with other things, I'm just like, yo, holy shit. Like, the way you went in on my one boy, the Pythagoras theorem, bro, I was like in tears, like dying, because like we've all sat there and been like, man, like, don't be talking about Pythagoras. Like, that shit takes like an evening to learn. Like, it takes like 2 seconds. Don't be blaming Pythagoras for you all this shit. And then my man comes in here and just levels the dude. And then you're like, but yo, killer style, killer verse. Like, you can tell this man comes in and like works about his craft. But don't you fucking talk to me about Pythagoras. Bro, you had me in tears. So like, from the day, even when I saw your Archaic review, I was like, this guy is like a nice way about going about his reviews. They're unorthodox, but they're traditional in a way. And then you subvert expectations, like, killer shit, bro. For real. Killer shit.
Did that. I feel like a certain type of person will like it, and then most other people will probably just not like it. And I can live with that because I'm not making 8-minute reaction videos. I could. They'd be terrible. I get
Maybe
views.
basic, yeah.
I get views.
Yeah.
Though. That would be the big difference. I'd have a 6-figure fucking sub count by now. But I don't know. I feel like it would have come at the cost of a lot of growth. Like, to be able to catch on to the appreciation that you went through with Nas and just discovering, like, just to be able to know, okay, I know I Rakim's dope. I know I Cool G Rap's dope. Like, I know that what's his name? Big Daddy Kane wrote the shittiest love songs you've ever heard in your life.
Like, you gotta go back to the foundation.
Definitely. But like, it helps you appreciate like both why Eminem's amazing and why a lot of people don't think Eminem's the GOAT all at the same time. Like, you understand both sides of the conversation once you go back and study history.
That's an interesting one, yo. You should do just a quick sidebar. You should do a whole video about that. How, frame of reference, someone like Eminem is crazier at rapping than somebody like, let's say, a Cool G Rap or a Rakim or a Big Daddy Kane. But then on the flip side, how he can't even fucking come close to what Cool G Rap, Big Daddy Kane, and someone like Rakim did.
But
And I feel like there's two sides to that because they're.
A better comparison would be Organized Confusion against Eminem, because it's so much closer to the same style of like.
See, I'm not even really familiar with that. That's just my ignorance right there.
Dude, man. So Pharoah Monch and this dude Prince Pose.
Pharoah Monch, my boy. Yeah.
Is Organized Confusion, and in like 91 and 94 or whatever, they dropped like 2 of the craziest fucking albums. Like, they're the kinds of albums you listen to and go, oh, he taught Eminem how to rap.
That's how they got their shit. I feel like that's slightly different from what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Eminem is considered by a lot of old people and young kids as like, oh, like the greatest thing ever walking this earth in terms of hip hop. He's not, right?
Not
But
in my opinion.
a great comparison video would be why Eminem kind of is, way above, surpassed like the levels of someone like Big Daddy Kane or Rakim or Cool G Rap. But at the same time, why he can't even come close to that same level. Like, it could be a commentary on how hip hop is completely shifted and how, like,
It's a
what's
lot to do
considered dope.
with,
But he
like,
himself would tell you he can't even come close to Cool G Rap.
but like a Big Daddy Kane and a Cool G Rap, these guys are seminal. They're not meant to be like the most talented MCs ever. They're the guys who invent the shit that influences everybody.
I would
Like,
sort of disagree. I think these guys are
no, no, no.
dumb talented.
Allow me to be clear. I'm not saying they're not talented. I'm saying that in the context and framing of like what comes later on in history, this is across all genres of music. The guys who invent music are often not going to be the most technically proficient at what they invent
Yep.
because Eminem's had what 13 years to build on what they invented by the time he shows up. Well, maybe not 13, but 7, 8 years easy before Infinite drops that he's built on this like progression. So it's not to say that like, because listen, man, you go back to like Rakim's smooth flow. He invented something here. They didn't exist, and then Rakim did it, and now it exists. And the way Eric B, I don't allegedly, because he may have jacked all the beats. There's a whole fucking story looking into
I
other
heard the
people's
whole thing.
beats.
Yeah, like half the shits weren't even fucking his beats and stuff.
Yeah, like apparently what he really was a thug, kind of like a Suge Knight. This is
Bizzle,
all
baby.
allegedly, people, allegedly,
Yeah,
and he's
yeah.
allegedly a bit of a Suge Knight. And then Rakim and the
Even with his boy Rakim, apparently.
and then he just said, no, 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 my money, my name. And
Yeah.
people have said as a DJ, he's not the best live. And this is again what I saw when I looked it up, because I was like, whoa, you think Eric B's president? You don't think he's not president? But like, so I mean, I appreciate like what these guys bring to the table, but then you also just consider sound engineering skills. But there was no Pro Tools in '88, so just Pro Tools makes Eminem sound 10 times better. Not talent, not necessarily better, because it's a weird comparison at that point. The tools that Eminem used to craft are very different than the tools that Eric B. and Rakim did.
And that's what I'm saying, because there's two sides to it. You could say that, like Eminem could come out and do a song where he's like rapping like the speed of fucking light and all this shit. It's like, Big Daddy Kane could have done a song like that too, if that was ever the style, if that's what people were into.
I'm pretty sure it was him that even on his first album was doing some fucking fast-paced, tricky shit.
They do some crazy shit, but I'm saying, right, like no one goes back and goes, oh my god, like that's the rap god of today. They just go, well, Eminem did Godzilla with whatever, and he went.
If you think about it, Godzilla makes rap god slow. So now rap god's not as impressive anymore. Is it like,
now you go back and listen to some of these guys' other shit, and it's like none of that shit.
You can do the same thing with like in metal. If you take that fucking group that Rock Hero made, Dragon Force or whatever, and they were just playing so fast that like people would just regardless of all the other shit that came before it. And, anyway, it's like it's a top level. It's a fascinating conversation because I mean, technology has to be taken into account. History has to be taken in. I mean, I can fucking do any Eminem song ever because Eminem wrote the fucking song. So I had all that time to study what that man did. So like,
right,
it takes away from any of my potential brilliance, in my opinion, because the truth is I'm just stealing from these other brilliant
That's
minds.
what I was trying to say earlier too. It's like it lays the foundation, whether you want to admit to it or not. You bite a little bit of this stuff because, dude, I listened to a fuck ton of Eminem when I was little.
Yeah. No, I mean,
but so not to get off on another tangent, but my immediate point was like, if you were to get into these kind of like discussions about like literally what we just spent the last 20 minutes talking about, that'd be a cool ass video that I would love to see from you. And that's kind of like my final wrap up where I was talking about I got all the homies coming together, doing all these projects. Now we've linked up, right? I'm saying we got to work on some form of music shit. And if you continue to do this, the hip hop dissection element, bro, that would be a cool ass video. I think you could easily touch on as we've seen for 20 minutes here, right? You discuss how the actual recording software and the way that these people can output their music has changed versus like you just said, that first album, Big Daddy Kane probably fucking came with some Godzilla-esque shit. People never gonna, without people bringing the spotlight to it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's fair. There's a lot of topical stuff to make. Those videos are they're harder. They're a lot harder and boringer to make just on a research front because one thing I listen to an album review and be like, yo, this song made me feel this, the bars made me feel this, versus, okay, in
Facts.
1992, this
Yeah.
fucking sound engineering machine got made. In 94 or 91,
And
the
I love
Colt
that shit.
but to research it is so fucking boring. So that's why I ended up doing a lot of it. But I'm interested in the topical side. If it comes down to it and I can layer it in a way where it's not like the same bullshit you'll see like fucking Sean C talk about, I'm down to like approach these topics in newer ways if I can come up with like an interesting way to do it. But
Yeah.
you can't freestyle these things. Like I don't script my album reviews. I have to actually script that shit, which makes it take way fucking longer.
Well, that's better too, because you're not sitting here going, like, let me think about what was I gonna say, like just reading out on a topic.
Yeah, no, that's still fresh. I think it'll be exciting to see what you come with the next stuff. I'm looking forward to it myself. I think you have like a style to you that is cool. I also really like Uncle Dre's voice. I'm like biased. I know Danny and I can hear me, so I know he owes me a smack from some of my commentaries that I made on it.
Oh, no one always gets smacked. It's funny. Uncle Dre's here now too. He rolled through like half an hour ago.
No, I know Uncle Dre's voice though. Fuck, I like that voice. That was a cool voice.
Yeah, man. That's what's up.
Anyway, so yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing what y'all do. I feel like you got a cool click going on. I recommend anybody who checks this out who has not heard of these dudes to roll through it and give it there. You've heard the man for a bit. He's got a lot of passion, and that's really dope. On that note, I guess we can roll up with a little wrap-up speech. So thank you all for watching it. Regardless of the Instagram live experiences, we had some choppiness in the first part. Everything seems to be smooth, real cool. What's good, man? It's good to see you there on the live. And basically, yeah, if you have any questions, let us know in the comments. We'll definitely get the man back again in the future, so you can put your questions there. We can answer them in the future. Let us know if you liked the video, and if you did, hit that like button because you know the YouTube live. Subscribe to the channel for more views. I know there's no context on Instagram. It's what it is. We cross-platform up in here. Anyway, before we bounce out, though, special thanks to the patrons: Ismail Dancy, Chris Power, Jonathan Barnes, Linda Williams, and Scribble, and I think I might have forgot. Whatever, sorry. Joe support, we do all that good stuff. If you care to support this endeavor, as we try to talk to people, do the album reviews, other growing stuff. It's a lot more interviews lately. There's going to be a lot more of those to come. Definitely check that out in the descriptions. And yeah, looking forward to, oh yeah, I make music too. I don't really touch on it a lot here, but links in description. From when this should drop on YouTube, I should already have a new song out the day after, so check that out too, everyone. Anyway, thank you all for being with us. Yo, live long and prosper, everybody.